What is the difference between the command words? So the simplest command word for a question that you'll be given is state, name, give, or identify. This only requires a few words to answer this question. You might be asked to describe, and that requires a short sentence, a short description, and your state and your describe question will only appear in National 5 HFT. It will not appear in higher HFT. If you're asked to explain, then this requires a description or a fact and also a reason why or a consequence. And finally, if you're asked to evaluate, then this requires a description or a fact, an opinion, so it's a good or a bad thing, is it suitable or unsuitable, and then also a reason why or your consequence. You might also want to add in a developed consequence for evaluation answers to get a second mark. If the question was asking you about factors which affect teenagers' choice of food, and the command word that you were given was to describe, meaning that your question would be describe factors affecting a teenager's choice of food, an example of an answer that you could give is that peer pressure can limit teenagers' choice of food. Remember, you want to make sure that you're being specific to the person, product, or place in the question. So for this question, we're being specific to teenagers. If the command word given was explain, so you're asked to explain factors which affect teenagers' choice of food, then you can use the same description that peer pressure can limit teenagers' choice of food, but you then want to extend that answer and you want to give a reason why or a reason how this is going to affect their choice of food. So we would add in, as they may only eat foods that friends are eating. Remember, you want to make sure that you're stabbing your answers for explain, so you're using the words so, therefore, as, or because. If you're asked to evaluate factors which affect teenagers' choice of food, you might write something like peer pressure may limit food choice, which is your description or your fact. You would then add in your opinion. This is unsuitable. Now remember, for an evaluate question, you always want to add in an opinion. And then you've give your consequence or your reason why, as they are only eating foods their friends are eating. Remember, your evaluations can be positive or negative, and most likely will be a mixture of both. If you wanted to elevate your evaluate answer, so the evaluate answer that's on the screen right now would gain you 1 mark. If you wanted to write a 2-mark evaluate answer, then you could add in a developed consequence. So you could add in, these may be high in fat and sugar, which could increase the risk of obesity. And that's how you can get 2 marks for that question. If there was a question asking about the disadvantages of cooked chill foods, if you're asked to describe the disadvantages of cooked chill foods, remember you just want to write a short statement, a short sentence, a short description, a short fact about the disadvantages of cooked chill foods. So one answer could be that cooked chill foods can be high in salt. If you were then asked to explain the disadvantages of cooked chill foods, we are sticking with the same fact or the same description that cooked chill foods can be high in salt, but we then want to give more detail and we want to give a reason why. So we're saying, so increasing the risk of high blood pressure. Remember, for explain answers, you always want to stab your answer. So you want to use the words so, therefore, as, or because. If you're then asked to evaluate cooked chill foods, you want to add in an opinion. So your opinion is shown in red here by saying that cooked chill foods are unsuitable. We've stuck with the same fact that they can be high in salt, and then we've stuck with the same consequence that is increasing the risk of high blood pressure. If you then knew a little bit more information about this answer and you wanted to give a second or get a second mark for your evaluate answer, you could add in a developed consequence. So again, cooked chill foods are unsuitable as they can be high in salt, which increases the risk of high blood pressure, would be your fact, your opinion, your consequence. So that's your evaluation. That's where you get your first mark. Therefore, increasing the risk of stroke would be your second mark, as that's a developed consequence. That's you developing that consequence further. Remember that your evaluations can be positive or negative. For evaluations, you would always just be asked to evaluate the suitability of cooked chill foods. You wouldn't be asked to evaluate the advantages or disadvantages. Another example could be the benefits of UHT foods. So if we were asked to describe the benefits of UHT foods, we might want to say something like UHT foods have a longer shelf life. So we've written our statement, our fact, our description. If we then wanted to elevate that answer and make it into an explain answer, we'd want to give a reason why. So UHT foods have a longer shelf life as our fact or description. We've stabbed our answer, so you want to use the word so, therefore, as, or because. And we've stated as they are heated to a high temperature, killing bacteria. So we've given a reason why they have a longer shelf life. If we're then asked to evaluate, we're adding in our opinion. So we're saying UHT foods are suitable as they have a longer shelf life, which is our fact, and then our consequence as they are heated to a high temperature, killing bacteria. If we then wanted to go on and gain our second mark with a developed consequence, we could stick with the same fact, opinion and consequence as we previously have done, and then stated, therefore reducing food waste, which would be a developed consequence and how you get your second mark. For this example, we're going to be discussing the contribution of red meat to the diet. If the command word were describe, i.e. the question was asking, describe the contribution of red meat to the diet. Remember, for a description, you just want to give a short sentence. We could write, red meat is high in iron. Remember, for explain answers, we are taking the description, we're then stabbing our answer and giving a reason why this is beneficial to the diet. So we've got our description here that red meat is high in iron. We've then elevated this answer to explain, which is shown in yellow. So we stabbed our answer, we've used the word so, and then we've explained why. So that it helps prevent tiredness by forming red blood cells. So we've given a reason why it's beneficial to the diet. If you're asked to evaluate the contribution of red meat to the diet, remember we want to add in an opinion to this answer. So we've given our fact or description that red meat is high in iron. We've then went on and given our opinion, this is good. Remember, that's the difference between explain and evaluate. Evaluate, you want to add in an opinion, as it helps prevent tiredness by forming red blood cells, which is your reason why or your consequence. If you wanted to add in an extra mark into your evaluate answer, so remember the answer that's shown on screen right now for evaluate is only worth 1 mark. If we wanted to gain a second mark, we could add in a developed consequence. So we've given the exact same answer about red meat being high in iron and it's being good because it's going to prevent tiredness. Then in red, we've got in the long term, this will help prevent anemia. So that's your developed consequence, and that's how you can get your second mark. And just a reminder, your evaluations can be positive or negative. Next example is all about factors which could cause obesity. So if you're asked to describe factors which could cause obesity, you might want to write that lack of exercise may cause obesity. So just a short statement is required. If you're then asked to explain factors which could cause obesity, we want to take that description written in green and we then want to stab our answer, so use the word so, therefore, as or because, and then give a reason why that's going to cause obesity, which is shown in yellow. As energy may not be used, so it's stored as body fat. So we've given a reason why which is us elevating our description to an explanation. If you're asked to evaluate factors which could cause obesity, we are just taking that explanation and adding in an opinion. So we've added in our opinion in red, saying that this is unsuitable. And again, a reminder that evaluations can be positive or negative. The evaluation that's shown on screen is just going to gain you 1 mark. If we wanted a second mark for the same factor about lack of exercise, we can then go on and add a developed consequence. So we've extended this answer by saying this puts extra pressure on the heart, causing high blood pressure, which would gain you an additional second mark. Our next example is all about the stages of food product development. If you're asked to state a stage of food product development, this is a very short, simple answer that only requires 1, 2, maybe 3 words. So in this instance, we might want to say concept generation. If you're asked to describe a stage of food product development, we want to describe what happens during concept generation. So during concept generation, ideas are brainstormed for the new product. If you're asked to explain this stage of food product development, you want to expand your description and give a reason why we would want to brainstorm ideas. So a unique idea is thought of that hasn't been done before. Our next example is all about ways to prevent food poisoning. Remember, your simplest command word is state, and it only requires 1, 2, maybe even 3 words. So if you're asked to state ways to prevent food poisoning, we can say store meat in a fridge. However, if you're asked to describe ways to prevent food poisoning, that's the next level up, so we need to expand our answer in blue. So store meat in a fridge, and then shown in green, you've got your description between 1 to 4 degrees Celsius. If you're asked to explain ways to prevent food poisoning, we need to give a reason why storing meat in a fridge between 1 and 4 degrees is going to help prevent food poisoning. So we've got our description there, store meat in a fridge between 1 to 4 degrees. We've stabbed our answer, so using the words so, therefore, as and because. We've chosen as in this instance, as this will slow down the growth of bacteria, preventing food poisoning. So we've given a reason why this is going to prevent food poisoning. We've also linked it back to the question. It's really important that you're linking back to the question. Our next example is all about functional properties. So if we were to start off with the simplest command word, which might be state, identify, name, or give. So if you're asked to identify a functional property of fat in cakes, we're just looking for a 1, 2, 3 word answer. So we could simply say aeration, and that would get you a mark. However, if you were asked to describe a functional property of fat in cakes, it's not enough to just write aeration. You need to be writing a short description, a short sentence to describe the functional property of fat in cakes. We can elevate this identify answer to a description by adding the words that are in green. So during aeration, air is trapped when creaming together fat and sugar for the cake. If you're asked to explain the functional property of fat in cake, we need to be adding in a reason why we'd want to do this. So during aeration, air is trapped when creaming together fat and sugar. That's our description. We want to stab our answer, so use the word so, therefore, as or because, and we want to give a reason why we want to trap this air, so resulting in a light and fluffy cake. Remember, we need to include and be specific to the person, product or place that's in the question. In this instance, we're talking about cakes, so we do have the word cake in both the description and the explanation. And you'll also see it in the evaluation too. So that's us being specific to the question. If you're asked to evaluate a functional property of fat in cakes, we're just taking that explanation and you're adding in your opinion. So we're saying it's a good thing that air is being trapped when creaming because that's going to result in a light and fluffy cake. And remember, your evaluations can be positive or negative. In this case, it's a good thing that we're trapping air because you're going to get that light and fluffy sponge. If you wanted to say it was a bad thing that we're trapping air, then you can say it's a bad thing, and then you're just explaining why it's bad.